Used EVs are the biggest ripoff ever. Thinking about driving into the world of used electric vehicles? Well, hold on to that thought because we're going to uncover why they might not be the bargain you're hoping for. Battery issues. The first reason why used EVs might not be the best deal out there is due to their battery issues. So let's say you're eyeing a used electric car, thinking you're scoring a sweet deal on a trendy, eco-friendly ride. But here's the kicker. Those fancy EV batteries don't last forever. In fact, they start losing juice from day one. Sure, the car might look sleek, but under the hood, it's like buying a phone with a dying battery. It's simply not advisable. Here's the deal with EV batteries. They're pricey, like really pricey. We're talking thousands of dollars to replace them when they inevitably kick the bucket. And guess what? They don't last as long as they say. Manufacturers promise the moon, like 8 years of warranty. But by the time you're buying used, that warranty is probably about to expire or already gone. So who's floating the bill when the battery goes kaput? You guessed it, that's you. Oh, and let's talk about degradation. That's a fancy word for how much the battery's performance drops over time. You'd think your EV would keep going strong for years, right? Well, no. It turns out those batteries can lose a big chunk of their capacity a lot faster than you'd expect. Some reports say that just after a few years, you're already looking at a significant drop in how far your EV can go on a single charge. Imagine paying good money for a car that's supposed to be cutting edge, only to find out that it's already losing its spark. And here's the kicker. There's no easy way to check how good or bad a used EV's battery really is. Unlike checking the oil or swapping out a spark plug in a regular car, this stuff's high-tech and pricey to fix. So while you're eyeing that used EV with dreams of saving on gas, think twice. That battery could turn your sweet deal into a costly nightmare faster than you could say range anxiety. So yeah, used EVs might look like a steal at first glance, but when you factor in the battery blues, they're more like a ripoff waiting to happen. Changing market demographics. You see, when electric vehicles first hit the scene, it was the well-to-do folks who jumped on board. These are the ones who could afford the latest and greatest, with all the bells and whistles. Think new cars with shiny warranties that cover just about everything. But hey, those warranties don't last forever, do they? Now, fast forward to when these early adopters decide it's time for an upgrade. What happens to their old EVs? Well, they hit the used car market, ready for a new owner. But here's the catch. The folks who can afford to buy brand new EVs probably aren't rushing to snag a used one. They want the peace of mind of a fresh warranty, not someone else's hand-me-down with potential maintenance headaches. So what's left considering these used EVs? Middle class and lower income families. These are the folks who aren't rolling in dough and have to think twice about every penny they spend. They're looking for a reliable ride that won't break the bank on repairs and maintenance. And let's face it, EVs, even used ones, can be a gamble when it comes to long-term costs. Think about it. You buy a used EV hoping to save on gas and do your bit for the planet. But what if that fancy battery starts acting up? Repairs are not cheap, and finding a mechanic who knows their way around an electric car isn't always easy. Plus, there's the whole charging station thing. They're not exactly on every corner like gas stations. So yeah, while the idea of a used EV might sound like a smart move, it's often the folks who can't afford a brand new one that end up taking the risk. They're hoping for a deal but might end up with a headache instead. And that's why when it comes to buying used EVs, it's not always a story of savvy savings. Sometimes it's just about making the best of what's available, even if it comes with a few more bumps in the road. Difficulty in repairing. So, you've got your eyes set on a used EV. Looks slick, runs clean, what could go wrong, right? Well, here's the scoop. Fixing up an electric ride isn't like your grandpa's old gas guzzler. First off, EVs have fewer moving parts, which sounds great until something actually breaks, and when it does, it's often not a quick fix. Instead of a mechanic popping in a new spark plug, you might be looking at replacing whole chunks of high-tech gear, and that stuff does not come cheap. Then there's the issue of finding someone who knows their way around an EV. Mechanics who specialize in electric cars aren't as common as your neighborhood oil change joint. So when your EV starts acting up, you might find yourself hunting for a specialist who won't charge you an arm and a leg just to diagnose the problem. And let's not forget about warranties. When you buy new, you've got that safety net, a promise that if something goes wonky, the manufacturer has got your back. But when you're eyeballing a used EV, that warranty might be hanging on by a thread. And when it's gone, it's on you to foot the bill for any repairs that pop up. And trust me, with all the high-tech wizardry under that hood, those bills can add up fast. So yeah, while EVs promise low maintenance compared to old school cars, don't be fooled. When something does go wrong, it's often a bigger hit to your wallet than you would expect. And without a solid warranty to fall back on, you're taking a gamble on whether your sleek electric ride will stay smooth sailing or turn into a money pit. Recurring EV issues. Recurring EV issues are why some folks steer clear of used EVs, and there are just enough of them to go around. First off, range anxiety. That feeling when you're sweating bullets about whether your EV will make it to the next charging station. Sure, newer models have a better range, but when you're eyeing a used one, you might be looking at older tech that needs more juice more often. It's like buying a smartphone that's great until the battery starts dying midday. Then there's the charging scene. Sure, big cities might have plenty of charging spots, but what if you're cruising through the boonies? Not every gas station has a charger next to the pump, so unless you're planning a road trip around charging stations, you might end up stuck with a car that's got nowhere to refuel when you need it most. And let's talk insurance. EVs cost more to insure than your average sedan. Why? Well, there's still a bit of a wild card for insurers. Parts are pricey, repairs can be tricky, and not every insurance company has figured out the best rates for these high-tech rides. So what starts as a budget-friendly used car can turn into a bigger bite out of your wallet every single month. Look, we get the appeal of going green and saving on gas, but when it comes to used EVs, it's just not about the environment. It's about whether those trade-offs in range, charging hassle, and insurance costs are worth it. For most folks, sticking with a trusty gas-powered ride might seem a whole lot simpler and more reliable. Outdated tech. Let's talk about another reason why older EVs might feel more like a relic than a revolution in today's fast-paced tech world. See, EV tech moves fast. Like blink and you'll miss it fast. What was top of the line a few years back might now feel more like a dinosaur. Take charging speeds, for instance. Older EVs can take ages to juice up compared to the latest models that zip through charging stations like they're on a mission. Imagine waiting forever at the pump, but instead of gas, it's electrons and you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. Then there's range. Newer EVs go further on a single charge thanks to smarter battery tech that's all about efficiency. But with older models, you might find yourself planning pit stops more often than you'd like. It's like buying a phone with a battery that barely makes it through the day. Annoying and not exactly convenient. And let's not forget about battery tech itself. It's come a long way. Newer batteries are lighter, hold more power, and last longer than their older counterparts. So when you're eyeing that used EV, remember, you're not just buying a car, you're buying into a tech race where last year's model might not keep up with today's standards. Sure, buying used can save you some cash up front, but when you factor in slower charging, shorter ranges, and outdated batteries, that deal might start to feel more like settling for second best. In a world where tech moves at lightning speed, sometimes it pays to just wait for the latest and greatest, even if it costs a bit more. So if you're thinking about buying a used EV, think about the tech, the costs, and the trade-offs. Sometimes what seems like a steal up front can end up costing you more in the long run.